Hello and welcome to this week's live on embracing change. Now, I hear this so often, people saying I'm rubbish when it comes to change. I hate change. Such a strong statement, but I'm sure that at some point in all of our lives, at some point we have said, or at least thought, oh my God, change is so uncomfortable, or I hate change, or we do all that we can to avoid it. Whether that is changing jobs, changing careers, relationships, schools, things like that. It brings up a lot of uncomfortable feelings. And I'm going to be sharing with you some very simple tips on how you can begin to not only embrace change, but actually thrive through it, because we have been going through one of the biggest changes that we may even encounter in our lives, in our lifetime. So yes, here we go. So I thought I would start by sharing a few reasons why we resist change. We basically fear it because we fear that we may lose something that is important to us, whether that is something that we value or even the fear that we won't be able to adapt to the change. So let's say if you were in a relationship and you wanted change, you really wanted to change something about it, maybe leave the relationship or move somewhere new. But the idea of what if I can't handle the bills on my own? What if I can't find a place to stay on my own? What if I don't find a new social network, etc., etc.? And that applies across all of our lives. What if I go to the gym class and I can't keep up with everybody else? What if I go for that promotion and then I can't handle it? So we have that fear of us losing control or losing something that we value, and also not being able to adapt to the new way. And at a deeper level, psychologically, it threatens our safety. If we really look at that, we might feel unsafe. And here's the other one, out of control. And when we feel out of control as humans, that's when we begin to panic. That's when we kind of like clutch at anything. Hence the avoiding change. But let's be honest, it can be so much worse in our heads than it actually is in real life. So let's get into a few simple tips on how you can begin to embrace change and thrive through it. So number one, really understanding that change is inevitable. Like, it happens every year, every week, something in our life may change, and we can't always control that. So actually just seeing and just reminding yourself sometimes, do you know what? Change is inevitable. It might not necessarily be something to fear. And the more that you embrace it, the less resistance that you're going to feel. And when we have less resistance, we tend to kind of breeze through the change. We begin to embrace it. Dare I say, you may even enjoy the change. Think back now, just reflect for a moment if you've been through a change in your life when at the time you kept putting it off. You kept thinking there's no way I'm going to be able to handle this, or the what ifs. And actually during it, yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, we may have a few wobbles along the way, but actually through the other side of it, oh, it's not so bad. Actually, this was all meant to happen. I feel much freer. I feel stronger. I feel whatever that is for you. So the more that you can just embrace the fact that change is inevitable. I always say change is inevitable. Transformation is a choice. Like, there's the difference. We can sometimes be thrown into change and we are really resisting it. Therefore, we kind of get put through the mill a little bit. It could be a little bit more painful. Whereas when we embrace it and we're like, okay, I'm going to take that action despite the fear, that's when beautiful transformations happen in your life. So number two is just about facing the fear head on. When you are at that point where maybe you have to make a decision, just thinking, okay, I'm just going to go for it, and having the ability to positively root yourself on. So checking in with what you're saying to yourself. Are you saying, I'm rubbish at change, I can't do this, I can never handle change, I run away from change? I actually had a conversation with someone last night that said, I'm shocking at change and I hate it. So can you imagine that when they're faced with it, such as lockdown was the biggest change any of us could ever have experienced in like a global society. Yet, here's the key thing, yet within a couple of months, did it begin to feel like the norm? Whether you were locked down or going to work, now we're seeing people in masks, now we're social distancing. What was once that thing when we'd go to hug people and go, oh no, I better not. Or we would be like, I need to get out of the house, In the end, after a month or so, it was like, it's kind of like normal life now. We become adaptable so quickly. And something else to remember when it comes to embracing change is what underpins change is habits. And what I mean by that is if something in your life changes, let's say your job, it isn't just like the job in itself. Your morning routine may change, your commute may change. So these are all underpinned by habits. What you wear may change, habitual things. And the study by Caroline Lally evidences that it takes an average of 66 days to form a new habit. So what can we take from that? It takes an average of around 66 days to be and feel comfortable with change because they're all underpinned by habits. So number 3, in fact, I don't know if it's 3 or 4, but let's go with number 3. From change comes growth. If you go in there with that mindset that, you know what, as uncomfortable as it is, I'm going to grow through this. I'm going to come out of the other side stronger. If you are listening to this right now and you are thinking, or if you can think, how are you coming out of this global pandemic? I'm keeping really optimistic and saying we're coming out the other side now. And how have you adapted to that? What have you learned about yourself? What has changed that you've had to embrace or you did embrace? How has that made you stronger? How has that actually encouraged growth? The more that you can reflect on that, it's called positive reinforcement. You are reinforcing to yourself that actually change isn't too bad. Actually, I did manage it. I did get through it. The more that you can sort of command your mind that that's your truth, that is when you're going to be like okay and, dare I say, excited when change is on the horizon. Just know that you can take those lessons from change, whether it's like the good, the bad, the ugly. And that brings us on to the last thing, which is if you right now are sat there going, I hate change, this is it. Start to see that as just a story that you've told yourself over time. You may have heard a parent, grandparent, teacher, colleague, partner say something about change that you have taken on yourself, or maybe you've experienced it and it was a negative experience at the time. If that is your story, that change is rubbish, you're not good at it, you're never strong enough, change is scary, I hate change, that was the one that I heard last night. See if you can begin to change that story right now so you can then begin to embrace it, because just as I said, it's inevitable, it's going to happen. And that can be as simple as, I embrace change. I don't mind change. I can handle change. And here's one to work on. I enjoy the challenge. That is now a mantra that I often say to myself. The reason being is I've been through some big ass changes in my life. Some I've chosen, some I've been thrown into. And actually on reflection, in order to be able to embrace those lessons, to be able to embrace the growth that we get from changing, if we see that as I embrace the challenge, I thrive off it, like that is something to work towards. Because then when you see an opportunity or when you're faced with something in your life, you're not going to run away. We're not going to go into that fight, flight or freeze. You're going to go, okay, It's going to be uncomfortable. It may be uncomfortable, but I'm going to get through this. It's okay. I'm going to rise to the challenge. So there, I'm gonna love you and leave you. I hope that this supports you in the coming week. If you think that this has been of benefit for you and maybe any of your friends or family would appreciate seeing this, please just tag them below or maybe even give it a share. If you do share, let me know, as I will give you a personal thank you. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much, and yeah, let's embrace the inevitable. And I look forward to seeing you soon.